Knuckleheads, welcome one, welcome all to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about the sport of boxing, the Fighters Rep. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua making Miami money. You heard that right. They made Miami money on Friday, but at what cost? And I'm bringing this up because a guy I really like a lot in the sport of boxing, Carl the Cobra Froch, a guy with balls of steel in the ring and out of the ring, right? No Diddy. He's a guy who's calling this sort of misfits type, YouTube type, showman type boxing out, saying it's not real boxing. He thinks it's harming the integrity of the sport. This is a topic that I think a lot of people are just glossing over in the name of entertainment and entertainment value. And people continue to say things like, oh, any, attention is good attention. You know what I mean? And I am starting to think that Carl the Cobra Froch, who's attempting to maintain the integrity of boxing by calling this sort of stuff out, may understand something. There may just be something to that, right? Because he was saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, if people were tuning into that, what they saw on Friday night on Netflix, that fight between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, if people were tuning into the sport of boxing to the first time to watch that, a lot of them were probably confused and underwhelmed if that was their introduction to boxing. Because that fight, right, you could dress it up however you want. You can manipulate it however you want. Not everybody's stupid. That fight was not a good fight. That fight was a terrible fight. That fight was not a competitive fight. Those were two guys that did not belong in the ring with each other at all. That was as close to a money grab as I've ever seen in the sport of boxing. Really, that was as close to a money grab that I've ever seen, right? Where you got two guys facing each other, where you got one guy who essentially had zero chance of winning, and we somehow came away with a pot of over $120 million, allegedly. Wow, it's incredible. And I do applaud Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua for being able to generate that kind of money. And what I did say in the post-fight was, I'll give him praise for what he did for women's boxing and what he's doing for women's boxing. I'll give him praise for trying to continue to get up, as, he was dropped 4 times total, I believe it was, in that fight. I will give him praise for attempting to build a promotion and giving, some of the legends of yesteryear a little bit more shine and legacy. And I'm talking about guys like Anderson Silva, guys like Tyron Woodley, right? I do want to see those guys continue to be shown love. It's nice for those guys to get paid. But when the main event is a YouTuber with, less than half the fights of a professional heavyweight gold medalist, multiple-time world champion, still one of the best heavyweights in the world, and the YouTuber is probably naturally closer to cruiserweight and has no shot. We have to start thinking ourselves, when is the line, right? Where is the line for going too far? When is it that we've gone too far? And something Carl Froch is putting out there, because it does on some level harm the integrity of the sport 100%. It does on some level harm the integrity of the sport, right? When the sport is supposed to be based on, who's the best. Listen, boxing is about who's the best. Combat sports is about who's the best. Yes, it's entertainment. Yes, selling it helps the promoter continue to put on shows, but it's not really sports entertainment the way wrestling is, right? We all know, at least now we do, that wrestling is fake. Boxing is not fake. Boxers, MMA fighters, these guys go through the ranks. These guys move up slowly. These guys earn it in blood, sweat, and tears. And yes, they want to be paid. And yes, controversy sells and goofiness sells in today's society. But at what point? Do we step back and do we say, well, dang, what about the integrity of the sport? Because if the sport gets watered down to the point where there's no longer any legitimacy behind the fights, there's no longer a ranking system in place that forces people to earn fights against each other. If we lose that, then what do we have left? Then we don't have a sport to begin with in order for there to be big payment to all these guys. Shout out to Adari Pennant, 3389. Appreciate you being in here, big dog. He says, who wins David Benavidez versus Anthony Joshua? You see, Adari, I appreciate the question, but honestly, and I'm not picking on you, man. I'm not picking on you. You're talking about a light heavyweight versus a legit heavyweight in boxing. I mean, we're not even talking about one weight class, right? We're talking multiple weight classes here. And David Benavidez, just recently moved up to light heavyweight after campaigning at super middleweight. So, Adari, I just have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, brother. He's too big. Anthony Joshua is too big. He's a legitimate heavyweight. He's been so since he won the gold medal at the Olympics. And David Benavidez, as much as I love David Benavidez, I think David Benavidez is that guy. He's one of those guys. I think David Benavidez is potentially the next big face of boxing, getting there if he's not there already. But I'm not going to put a guy in David Benavidez up against an Anthony Joshua who's, 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", 250, 260 pounds on fight night, maybe more. I mean, he could literally potentially knock him out in one punch. And the reason Jake Paul lasted so long, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The guy was scooting around, running around for about 6 rounds until getting knocked out and getting his jaw broken, which shows you the reason there's weight classes, right? He basically landed one clean punch in this fight and broke this kid's jaw in 2 different places. He would potentially do the same to David Benavidez if they exchanged. And that's why I definitely wouldn't like to see that fight. I mean, I would tune in just like I tuned into this last one because it would be a train wreck, but not something I would advise, and not just as a fan. I mean, I was a former kickboxing promoter for 7 years. Every time I made a fight, I had to make sure, it was a good fight. And there was no way I was going to match a heavyweight versus a super middleweight. And there would have been no way I would have matched unless it was for ridiculous amounts of money like Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua made. But there would be no way I would feel comfortable matching an Anthony Joshua and a Jake Paul. There's just no way. I mean, there's just no way based on what I've seen. Adari says, do you think most valuable promotions will become bigger? I do. I think it's going to be big. I said that's where I'll give Jake Paul his praise. That's where I'll give him his flowers, right? He's putting these women fights on. He's giving the women a lot of buzz. He's putting entertaining events together. He's given the sport a lot of buzz, right? But, you know, we want that buzz. We want that buzz to be positive. We don't want that buzz to be negative. I want the buzz to be positive. I want people to tune in and be like, damn, that was a very competitive fight. That was a great fight. I want to tune in and watch that again. And you are getting some of that on the MVP cards, but you're also getting, you know, what was essentially, you know, it was almost like a Jackass episode. This was almost like the Jackass episode where, you know, one of them, I forgot which one it was, let Butterbean punch him in the face or punch him in the nuts or whatever it was. I mean, that's what this is. That's what this was, you know. This was a Jackass episode on Netflix for boxing. If you believe Jake Paul had any chance to win this fight, if you believe he had any chance whatsoever to win this fight outside of an act of God, a meteor flying in and smashing into Anthony Joshua, the ring collapsing underneath Anthony Joshua in South Florida and that swamp ground swallowing him up, an iguana, you know, flying out of the audience and landing on him and knocking him out. If you believe that Jake Paul had any shot at winning this fight outside of an act of God, then you, my friend, were played by the marketing machine. That being said, I do think Most Valuable Promotions will continue to grow. Adari, by the way, man, I appreciate you guys. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the Fighters Rep podcast. We do this every Monday at 7 p.m. live, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Subscribe to the channel, join it. We talk about boxing. We talk about any sports. We talk about any topic you guys want to bring up in here. We talk about it, but we try to stick to boxing. Do you think TKO Zuffa Boxing will do great 2026? I absolutely do. I absolutely do. It just seems to me that the Saudis who are backing it, Turkey Al Sheikh who's backing it, it seems to me they just have an unlimited financial supply. I mean, really, I'd love to do a little bit more research, maybe head on over to Saudi Arabia, where, I mean, wife was actually born there. Head on over to Saudi Arabia and see what it is that incentivizes Saudi Arabia to spend all this money on sports. I would imagine at this point, maybe it has to do with that new city that they're building, Neom, which is probably going to be one of the greatest economic powerhouses the world has ever seen. They're building that city, no doubt, to rival Dubai and one-up Dubai. They want Saudi Arabia to be a tourist attraction, a destination for tourism and for business and economic development. And I would imagine that building up sports entertainment and sports, the Saudis now are heavy into golf, into tennis, into everything else. Baseball. There's like an Arabian baseball league now. I would imagine they're just laying the infrastructure for this fantastic city that they're building. And they feel that this is an investment that's going to continue to build their economy in their city. I mean, this is the government, which I wish we would have more of here, if I'm being honest. The government investing in sport in order to start up and build and create more economic growth. I feel like we need more stuff like that. Maybe we need a branch of the government, a minister of sport or whatever the equivalent would be with Turkey Al Sheikh. I think that'd be very cool. And I would love to go see what the incentive is. I would imagine a lot of businesses or maybe nationalized businesses or organizations are incentivized to donate money to sport, like how we have here in our tax code, how, you could sort of have a write-off, right? If you're donating or sponsoring or maybe even, you have an ad at one of these fights, your brand is is a logo on the ring apron or in the corner, you can write that off to an extent. I would imagine they have something maybe similar in their tax code that allows them to do that. David Benavidez versus Jai Opetaia would be fireworks. I could not agree more. I think that would be a fantastic fight. Adari, who do you favor? Who do you favor in that fight right now, man? I got to be honest, man, because he's a cruiserweight right now. I would probably say that you got to slightly tilt it to Jai Opetaia, even though, I would be going for Benavidez. Opetaia is no joke, man. That's a big, strong, athletic cruiserweight. And that would be a very interesting fight at this juncture. MMA and kickboxing is pointless because they knock out a lot of people with their hands. Might as well do boxing and make big millions that way. Well, I love kickboxing, Adora. I was a kickboxing promoter for 7 years. You can go back on this channel, watch some of our fights. They were fantastic. I actually think kickboxing is the most entertaining of all these sports, right? Because it's 3 to 5 rounds. The guys go out there and get it. There's no grappling. There's no holding. It's basically just boxing with kicks and over the course of a shorter time span. So, people got to go out there and get it and be aggressive. It's just that it hasn't gotten the backing. It's never gotten the backing, the financial, investment that boxing has, which, boxing is a classic sport. It's been around forever. And I feel like MMA, Dana White really put that sport on his shoulders and took it to new heights, regardless of how anybody may feel about him. What he's done in that sport and for that sport and for those fighters really is incredible, whether you agree with all his decisions or not. And it's just the marketing machine of the UFC has been incredible for that sport. There has not been an equivalent of that from what I have seen in the sport of kickboxing. And of course, boxing, you've got a ton of promoters. Anthony Joshua versus Rico Verhoeven is in talks next. Well, I'm not sure if that's, is that really something you heard? I haven't heard that. I think that would be another interesting fight, but another fight, in my opinion, where, it would be a big mismatch. Rico Verhoeven is a beast in his sport, right? In kickboxing. But when you're talking about just boxing, and it's my understanding that, I think he does spar maybe with Tyson Fury, or he spars maybe with Tom Aspinall. I think I've seen him with some of these guys. I don't know. I think with Tyson Fury, but totally different than going in there against a seasoned boxer with years of experience, and being successful in there. So, kind of back to the point at issue, man. My question for you guys is Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, they made Miami money. Shout out to Miami, my hometown. But at what cost? At what cost, right? Does it cost the integrity of the sport when you have a mismatch like that? When you have a guy who basically has no shot at beating the other guy? Or is this something that's good for the sport merely because it brings a lot of eyes to the sport, casual eyes to the sport? You guys let me know in the chat, in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel. Join the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Don't forget, we do this every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Typically, I'm with my partner in crime, Ignorant Behavior, Gary, but he's not able to make it today, so I'm running this one on my own. I will be dropping content for you guys, basically on the daily, so please subscribe to help me continue to be motivated to do that. And obviously, after all the big fights, we're going to go live. I'll try to get you guys some interviews and stuff with some people in boxing. And, and we'll keep this thing going. Do you think one championship is going to boxing? I don't believe so. I think they're doing a good job with Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA. They've got their hands full. But, hey, if they wanted to dip their toes into boxing, I don't see why not. Maybe they're trying to be like a one-stop shop for all sorts of combat sports. They've got jiu-jitsu. They've got everything else. So we'll see, man. We'll see. And Adara, I really appreciate you joining me. and asking all these questions, man. It's greatly appreciated. Please subscribe to this channel. Join the channel. Knuckleheads, I've been on here 20 minutes. Typically, you know, I like to be here on these lives for about an hour, but it's a bit quiet after that crazy weekend we had of boxing. And so I don't want to just sit here and blow out hot air for you guys. So subscribe, join, and check out the channel tomorrow. I'll be dropping daily videos or as close to it as possible. Appreciate you guys and have a great night.